The night is still, too still. You lie in bed staring at the ceiling that used to echo with laughter, and somewhere between the silence and your own breath, a thought keeps returning. You failed, but if you're here still listening, there may be something your soul has been waiting to hear. Not a sermon, not a fix, just a whisper that says, I still see you. I was a provider, a protector, the man who didn't cry, didn't quit, didn't break, or so I thought, until the day she left, until the car pulled away with our daughter waving from the window, until the silence moved in and took her place. I didn't know you could feel invisible in your own home, but I did. I still do. They say divorce is just a chapter, but no one tells you how it rewrites your name. You're no longer dad every night. You're a visitor in your child's life. You make small talk during pickups and pretend not to cry when they leave again. And in the middle of all that pretending, you wonder if anyone sees the man unraveling inside. If this already feels too close to your story, don't go yet. And if something here speaks to the ache you hide, you may want to subscribe so you don't miss what's still to come. I read somewhere divorced fathers are twice as likely to experience hidden depression, but only 1 in 10 ever talk about it. Harvard 2022. I wasn't surprised, because silence becomes normal when no one asks how you're really doing. You keep smiling, you keep functioning, but inside, you wonder if God has stopped looking your way too. One night I found it again. That old Bible my grandmother gave me. The one I hadn't opened in years. I flipped randomly, maybe it was desperation, maybe divine, and this verse caught me, Psalm 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. I didn't know what to do with that, except breathe. If you've been carrying your silence like armor, the next part may be where the healing begins. Because the voice you thought went silent has never stopped calling you home. You came back. The screen didn't go black. Your heart still beating. Your eyes still reading these words. That says something. You're not ready to close the book yet, because part of you still believes healing is possible, even in the midst of shattered dreams. You've heard it before. Real men don't fall apart, but they forgot to tell you that trying to be strong alone becomes a prison of silence, a cell built from unspoken shame. I remember the night I tried and failed to hold it together. I greeted her when she dropped off our daughter like nothing changed. Have a good evening, I said, voice steady. But inside, I was unglued. That evening I let the dishes pile up. I sat on the couch staring at the TV, yet not watching. The remote felt heavy in my hand, like everything I once enjoyed had lost its color. And in that dull ache, I realized strength without rest is just denial in a uniform. Because every time you swallow your tears, unspoken burdens line your bones. Every night becomes another echo of the man you thought you were and the person you fear you've become. Let me tell you something shocking. According to Harvard 2022. Divorced dads are twice as likely to suffer from depression, and yet only 10% reach out for help. 10%. That means 9 out of 10 kinsmen are silently wandering in their own minds. The world sees your silhouette at pickup time, but not what fills it at midnight. When I saw that statistic, I felt a mix of anger and relief. Anger because it confirmed my worst fears. Relief because at least I wasn't alone. But it also made me wonder, what if we started talking? What if we let anyone see our pain, not to judge, not to fix, just to witness? Because in the darkness, what we're craving isn't advice, it's presence. A soul to say, I see you. You matter. You're still here. And that's enough. Maybe right now, you're watching this with the weight of that question on your chest. Do I even deserve care anymore? Maybe you think you failed too much to start over. Maybe you think the world, maybe even God is done with you. But here's what I want you to know. What you feel, pain, regret, loneliness is not proof that you're broken beyond repair. It's proof that you're human, that you loved enough to feel loss, that you cared enough to risk everything. And in that truth, your vulnerability, there lies a pathway back to peace, back to love, back to purpose. Not long ago, I held a worn-out journal, coffee stains and creases, marking where I'd scribbled my worries late at night. Somewhere near the back, I wrote a verse that felt like a secret, passed down just for me. Isaiah 41:10, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Read slowly. Let each phrase settle in your heart. I will uphold you. It didn't say when you fix yourself. It didn't demand perfection. It simply promised presence. And in that promise, I felt something thaw. The cold edge of shame lost its grip just a little, because I remembered I wasn't seeing this alone. If hearing that promise loosened something trapped in your chest, then don't leave yet. What comes next might be the first real step towards seeing the brokenness differently. After that night, I didn't suddenly become whole. It wasn't dramatic, it was mundane. I started with the simple things. I stood outside the house where my daughter lived for 10 minutes. I just stood, breathed, let presence wrap around me. I reopened the Bible I abandoned years ago, not to perform or to feel validated, just to hold something real in my hands. I reached out to one friend, sent a message. Hey man, I'm barely hanging on. Can we talk? He answered. We didn't solve anything, but I didn't have to sit with it alone anymore. Those were the first cracks in the armor, the first steps out of the silence, and each small act said, I am worth the effort. I still have enough left to try. This is your moment. What small step could you take tonight? Maybe it's a prayer whispered with closed lips. Maybe it's opening a page in an old book. Maybe it's texting someone who might just say, I hear you. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be yours. And it just has to begin. In part 3, we'll dive into how offering yourself, grace tiny forgiving breaths, can start shifting brokenness toward hope. Because healing doesn't leap overnight. It unfolds in moments no one sees. Stick around. What comes next might change how you hold your silence forever. You're still here. That matters. Because healing doesn't ask for speed. It asks for presence. And presence tonight is enough. No one tells you. This divorce doesn't just change your relationship status. It rewrites your reflection. You start to wonder, am I still a husband, a father, a man who matters? Because when you lose the rhythm of bedtime stories, shared dinners, or weekend routines, you don't just miss the moments, you miss who you were in them. The hardest part isn't loneliness. It's the echo of your child's laugh in the hallway, of her small footsteps on the stairs, of your voice once sure, now silent. You hear it even when the house is still. You feel it even when friends say you'll be okay. But what they don't see is that grief can feel like a ghost who moves in without asking and stays longer than anyone expected. What if tonight you're not being asked to move on? What if you're simply being invited to sit still and breathe differently? I used to believe healing came like a rescue team. Loud, immediate, powerful. But for me it came through one sentence, spoken quietly by a friend who didn't try to fix anything. You don't have to earn your way back to being loved. It stopped me cold, because deep down I had been trying, performing, proving, pretending. But what if I didn't have to? And I read this verse, one I'd skimmed past a dozen times before. But this time, I heard it. Romans 8:1. Therefore there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. No condemnation. Not for the one who broke. Not for the one who lost everything. Not even for the one who walked away from himself for a while. If there's no condemnation from God, then why was I still condemning myself? Maybe no one has told you yet, but let me say it clearly in the quiet just for you. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to feel lost. And you're allowed to start again slowly, gently, honestly. Not because you're ready, but because grace was never about readiness. It was about presence. God is still here, and He's not measuring your progress. He's sitting with your pain. After that moment, I didn't rise with triumph. I didn't suddenly feel whole, but something shifted. I started writing letters I never sent. To my daughter, to myself, to God. I let worship music play at night, not to feel spiritual, just to remind my heart that peace was still possible. I stopped asking, when will I feel better, and started asking, what's the next gentle step? Maybe that's all you need tonight. Not a grand comeback, just a quiet return to yourself, to grace, to being seen. And here's the truth. Your story isn't over because someone else walked out. Your worth didn't leave when your family did. You're still someone God whispers to. Still someone He loves relentlessly. In part 4, we'll explore how to talk to God again, not with the right words, but with whatever you have left. Because prayer isn't about being proper. It's about being present. Stay with me. There's more grace waiting just ahead. You made it back. That matters. Because grace doesn't rush, it waits. And tonight it's still here, whispering, "You are still seen." There was a time I knew how to pray, back when life was steady, back when bedtime routines ended with whispered amen, back when I believed God and I were still speaking the same language. But then came the silence, the goodbye, the echo of divorce papers, and suddenly I didn't know how to talk to God anymore. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how to begin. I would sit with my hands folded, and nothing would come out. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe the scariest silence isn't between people. It's between you and heaven. But stay, because what comes next might just show you that God never stopped listening. There's a grief no one prepares you for, losing your place as a father in everyday life. You're not there when she skins her knee. You miss the bedtime hug. You watch milestones through text messages and photos. And in that distance, you start to question, what do I even have to offer God now? Why would he want to hear from a man who couldn't hold his home together? But God doesn't measure prayers by their polish. He listens for presence. One day I was standing in the cereal aisle staring blankly at the shelf. I couldn't remember the kind she liked. It was such a small thing, but my heart cracked. I just stood there, 35 years old, holding a box of Cheerios, and I cried, right there surrounded by strangers. And in that moment, without eloquence, without scripture, without performance, I just said in my heart, God, this hurts more than I know how to explain. And that was prayer. Then I found this Romans 8:26. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. Wordless groans, not perfect phrases, not recited theology, just groans, tears, cereal aisle confessions. And God meets us even there. Maybe tonight you're not sure what to say either. So let me say this for you. God, I don't know how to pray anymore. I don't know if I'm worthy, but I miss you. And I need you to come find me in this mess. You don't need a stage. You don't need a pastor's voice. You just need to mean it even in the smallest whisper. You are still seen. You are still loved. You are still worth being spoken to by heaven. Say that again with me. I am still seen. I am still loved. I am still worth being spoken to. Here are 3 small things I did that helped me begin again. 1. Whisper one line to God before sleep. Not a full prayer. Just one honest line, I'm still hurting. Or please don't leave me. 2. Play Psalm 23 on audio at night. Let it fill the silence you can't fill with your own words yet. 3. Write a letter you never send. To God, to your child, to your former self. Let what's hidden have a voice. In part 5, we'll walk into the next layer of healing. How to believe God still wants to bless your life, even after the break-in, even when you feel disqualified. Don't rush, but don't stop now. What's ahead might be the first time you truly believe that something good could still come from this. You're still here. That says something about you. You haven't turned away, even if it hurts. even if part of you still wonders if anything will ever feel whole again. You stayed. That's where healing begins. Not in the fixing, but in the staying. And through it all, you are still seen. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It whispers. It says things like, don't hope too much. Don't ask God for anything. Just survive. Because if you don't hope, you can't be disappointed. Right. That's what I believed. That I had forfeited blessing. That grace had an expiration date and mine had passed. Have you ever felt like God was still real, but just not for you anymore? If you have, stay here, because the next few minutes might surprise you. After the divorce, I didn't stop believing in God. I just stopped believing He had anything good left for me. I looked at others, families still together, kids still laughing, men still chosen, and I thought, that's for them, not for me. I prayed small. If I prayed at all, never asked for joy, just begged not to feel worse. It felt safer that way. But one night a verse slipped through my shield, and everything shifted. Joel 2:25. I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. Restore, not just forgive, not just patch together. Restore the years, not just the actions, but the time, the dreams, the parts of you that felt lost forever. That verse undid me. I sat there, coffee gone cold, lights dimmed, heart aching, and whispered out loud, God, if you still restore, would you dare restore me too? It felt foolish, but it also felt real. And sometimes faith looks like foolishness, whispered through tears. Maybe you've stopped asking for good things, not because you don't want them, but because you're scared to believe they're still allowed. So let me ask you this. What if the blessings of God are not reserved for the unbroken? What if they're designed for the ones who stayed, even when it hurt? A few months later, I got a call for a job interview. Something in me wanted to cancel. That voice inside said, you're not ready. You're not what they want. You're just damaged. But I showed up anyway. And when they asked, tell us about yourself, I didn't list my failures. I said I'm learning how to begin again. I bring honesty, and I bring fight. I got the job, and it wasn't just a paycheck. It was proof. Proof that broken doesn't mean done. That God still opens doors even when you feel unqualified. 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Perfect power in weakness, not in your wins, not in your stability, in your weakness. That's where He shines. Say it with me. I am still worthy of blessing. I am still worthy of joy. I am still being restored. Again, I am still being restored. In part 6, we'll walk through a truth many never admit out loud. What do you do when you still miss them? Because moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. And sometimes, God meets you most clearly in the ache. Don't rush away from this moment. What comes next might be exactly the softness your soul has longed for. You're here again, still breathing, still aching, still searching. That's not weakness. That's proof of love. The kind that lingers even after the door is closed. Here's what no one tells you. You can forgive. you can even accept, but sometimes you still miss them. Not just the person, but the life, the routines, the us that once was. And when the missing doesn't go away, you wonder if you're broken or just stuck. Maybe you didn't stop loving them, even when they stopped staying. If that sentence made your chest tighten, stay, because you're not alone in this. Some nights it's not the silence that hurts, it's the memory that answers it. A scent, a song, a toothbrush still left behind. You find yourself whispering to no one, "I hope you're okay," even though they may never hear it. And then you wonder, does that make you weak, or does it just make you human? Studies show over 60% of divorced men report continued emotional connection years after separation. Pew Research 2023. Why? Because love doesn't vanish with paper. Because hearts aren't erased with signatures. You gave something real. And real doesn't disappear. It lingers. It echoes. It keeps praying even when there's no reply. One night I came across this verse again. 1 Corinthians 13:7. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Endures. That's the word that undid me. Because maybe what I was feeling wasn't weakness. It was enduring love. Love that stayed even after the other person left. So if tonight you still miss her, you still wonder what could have been, you still replay the laugh of your daughter in the back seat, that doesn't mean you haven't moved forward. It just means your heart still feels. And maybe that's what God uses to prove you're still alive. Here's the prayer I whispered once when I couldn't take the ache anymore. God, I don't want her back. I just want to stop missing her so much. I want to breathe without remembering. But if this ache has a purpose, please meet me inside it. And you know what he did. Not by removing the ache, but by sitting with me in it. Say it with me, I can still miss someone and still move forward. I can still feel pain and still be healing. I can still love and still let go. Again, I can still love and still let go. You are still seen, even in this, especially in this. And part 7 will gently open the door to what comes next. What if God doesn't just want you to survive, but to be cared for again deeply, securely, even if you're scared to try? If that sounds impossible, maybe it's exactly where your healing is waiting. You're back, still here, still listening, still holding on, even if you don't know to what. That matters, because some part of you hasn't stopped believing that maybe, just maybe, you weren't meant to walk alone forever. It's the part you don't say out loud. I miss being chosen, not for approval, not for convenience, but for presence, for closeness, for love. But the moment you imagine loving again, something grips your chest. Fear. Because last time, it hurt. It broke you. And now the idea of trusting again feels like standing barefoot on broken glass. Maybe no one said this before, but God never asked you to stop wanting love. Stay. Because what comes next might just let you breathe deeper again. After the divorce, I told myself, I'm fine, alone. I don't need anyone. It's safer this way. But at 2 a.m., scrolling through photos I didn't post, I felt the ache. Not for a relationship, but for intimacy, for being seen again, and still chosen. I built walls to protect myself, but those same walls started to feel like a cage. One morning, half awake and numb, I opened to this Genesis 2:18. It is not good for man to be alone. I stared at it, not because it was new, but because I'd forgotten it still applied to me. I thought that verse was for couples with clean records, for the put-together ones, not for men like me. But there it was, still true, still speaking, still choosing. Maybe you've convinced yourself that love isn't for you anymore, that it was a chapter closed when your marriage ended, that desire makes you weak. But I want you to consider this. What if desiring love again isn't weakness, but holy? What if the ache isn't to be fixed, but to be seen, held, known, gently? I didn't join dating apps. I didn't chase attention. But I did allow one thing I let myself imagine. Not obsessively, not desperately, just tenderly. What if someone saw me and didn't flinch at the scars? What if someone found beauty in my honesty? What if I could love from my healed places, not my hurt? It happened slowly. I sat on a park bench one day while my daughter played. Another single parent sat nearby. We talked about playgrounds, work, schedules, and something in me didn't resist. I didn't fall in love. I just stayed open. That was enough, because staying open was the first miracle. Isaiah 43:19. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness. A way in the wilderness. Not when you're strong, not when you're whole, but right here in your mess. Say it with me. It's okay to want love again. It's okay to start slowly. I am still worthy of being chosen. Again, I am still worthy of being chosen. You are still seen, still longed for by God, still able to open, even gently. In part 8, we'll speak to the fear most men bury. What if I fail again? What if I ruin the next chance too? Because sometimes the past isn't what holds us back. It's the fear of repeating it. But grace doesn't run out when you try again. Sometimes that's where it begins. You're back, still breathing, still showing up. That alone is brave, because deep down, you're probably still wondering, what if I try again, and I fail again? It's not the first failure that haunts you. It's the fear of another one. You've lived it already. The goodbye, the silence, the pain of a child crying when you pack up your weekend bag. You survived that once. You don't want to feel it again. So now you hesitate. You guard yourself. You overthink every move. You keep the new close, but never close enough to hurt you. Maybe the biggest fear isn't being alone. It's failing again and proving everyone right. But what if trying again doesn't mean risking more pain? What if it's the only way to invite healing deeper? Stay. We need to talk about this. I once went on a dinner date first in years. She was kind, soft-spoken, understanding, and yet half Halfway through the meal, I felt the panic rising. What if I mess this up too? What if I say something wrong? What if she finds out who I really am? The food went cold. My palms sweated. I wanted to leave. Not because she was wrong, but because I didn't know if I could survive another ending. Then I remembered something I once heard in church, but never believed until later. Proverbs 24:16. Though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. Not the strong, not the flawless, the righteous fall 7 times and still rise again. God never expected you to walk unbroken. He expected you to get back up with Him. Maybe what you need to hear tonight is this: failure doesn't disqualify you from love. Fear doesn't cancel your future. Brokenness doesn't forfeit blessing. You didn't ruin everything. You learned something. You survived something. And now, you're still here. That's not weakness. That's a testimony. Trying again doesn't mean rushing. It doesn't mean trusting everyone. It means letting the next chapter be written instead of locking the book shut. Try gently. Love slowly. Speak honestly. It's not about perfect outcomes. It's about showing up with the truth this time. Psalm 73:26. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. He knows your heart might fail. He still chooses you anyway. Say it with me. I can try again without fear. I can risk love without shame. I can rise again even if I fall. Again, I can rise again even if I fall. You're still seen, still worthy, still being rebuilt with gentleness. In part 9, we'll walk into one of the hardest places. How do you rebuild trust with your child when part of you feels you already failed them because they still need you, and healing is still possible even in the space between weekends? Don't look away now. This might be what their heart and yours has needed all along. You're still here. Maybe because you know there's one ache you've buried the deepest, the one that wears a backpack, the one that calls you dad. And yet, some nights you lie awake wondering if you still deserve that title. Nobody tells you how strange it feels to ask permission to see your own child, to count minutes instead of memories, to parent through text messages, to feel more like a guest than a guardian. You show up with your best smile. You take them out. You return them on time. And when the car door shuts, you sit in silence and wonder if that was enough. You love them deeply, fiercely, but sometimes you don't know how to show it anymore. Stay. This is the part your heart and theirs may have been waiting for. I once forgot to pack her lunch for school the morning after she stayed over. She said it was fine, smiled even, but I didn't. All day I carried it like a sentence. You had one job. That's what guilt does. It takes the small things and turns them into proof that you're failing. But then I found this Psalm 103:13. As a father shows compassion to his children, so the Lord shows compassion to those who fear him. God used fatherhood, not perfection, as the image of compassion. Not flawless fatherhood, not always present fatherhood, just a heart that longs and tries. That's what he honors. That's what he mirrors. Maybe you don't tuck them in every night. Maybe you missed the last recital. Maybe you're learning how to love them from afar. But none of that disqualifies your love, and none of it removes your role. They don't need a perfect father. They need a present one. One who shows up even broken and says, "I'm still here. I still love you. And I always will." Here's what started healing my relationship with my daughter. I started writing her letters. Even if I couldn't give them often, I kept writing. I created a dad book, one photo from each visit with a little note under it. I told her out loud, "You can talk to me about anything. I will never stop being your dad." Not one thing fixed it all, but they built something, and slowly I saw trust returning. I saw laughter coming easier. I saw her eyes saying what her words weren't ready to. Deuteronomy 7:9. Know therefore that the Lord your God is God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations. 1,000 generations. That means what you rebuild now can echo in her life and her child's life. You're not just parenting a daughter, you're fathering a future. Say it with me, I am still her father. I'm still building something sacred. I'm not too late. Again, I am not too late. You are still seen, still called Father, still chosen to carry love forward. In part 10, we'll speak to something we often avoid. What happens when you try to forgive, but the pain keeps coming back? Because forgiveness isn't always instant. Sometimes it's a daily choice, and sometimes it's a wound God holds with you. Stay close. There's something in the next whisper that may finally release what you've been gripping for too long. You came back. That means something inside you is still reaching, even if the thing you're reaching for still hurts. Because forgiveness, real forgiveness, isn't clean. It's messy. It comes in waves. And sometimes it still stings. They tell you, let it go. Move on. Don't give them space in your head. But they don't see the flashbacks, the sudden anger, the way your breath shortens when you hear their name. You said the words, "I forgive you." You meant them, but the pain didn't evaporate. It lingered. And so you wondered, does that mean I didn't really forgive? Forgiveness doesn't mean the wound never happened. It means it doesn't get to define you forever. Stay. This moment might help you loosen something you've been gripping too tightly. I saw her laughing one day, online, happy, moved on, and I felt my chest collapse. Not because I wanted her back, but because I couldn't understand how she was okay while I was still bleeding. I had forgiven her, but that moment made me feel like I hadn't. Matthew 18:21-22. Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother? Up to 7 times. Jesus answered, I tell you not 7 times, but 70 times 7. Not 7. 70 times 7. Jesus didn't just raise the number. He redefined forgiveness as a process, a rhythm, a returning, a softening again and again. Maybe no one has told you this, but it's possible to forgive and still feel the echoes of betrayal. It's possible to choose peace while your heart still trembles some nights. That doesn't make you fake. It makes you human. And God knows He sees the attempt, the effort, the silent prayers of, I don't want this bitterness, but it still won't leave. I started small. I whispered her name in prayer, not with anger, just surrender. I wrote down the sentence, she doesn't owe me anymore. Then I read it aloud and cried. I imagined God holding both of us, not to erase the pain, but to release the weight. I didn't feel instant peace, but I felt lighter, and that was enough for day one. Psalm 56:8. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. Every moment you choose to release, even through tears, is remembered by God, stored, honored, held. You are not weak for struggling to forgive. You are strong for still trying. Say it with me, I have forgiven, even if it still hurts. God sees my effort, not just my outcome. I am not trapped by what they did. Again, I am not trapped by what they did. You are still seen, even in this hard surrender, even in this slow release. In part 11, we'll step into something sacred. What happens when you finally let go of the past and begin looking for purpose again? Because healing wasn't meant to end with survival. There's a life still waiting to be lived, and a calling still waiting to be answered. Come gently. There's more ahead than you imagined. You stayed. That alone says you haven't fully given up. Maybe you're not thriving yet. Maybe you're not glowing with purpose, but you're here. And that means there's still something inside you whispering there has to be more than just surviving. After everything broke, life didn't feel tragic, it felt empty. No explosion, just quiet, just days that looked the same, just long stretches of what now. I wasn't in danger. I wasn't in crisis, but I wasn't living either. It felt like existing with the volume turned all the way down. And slowly, I started believing, maybe this is all there is for me now. You don't need a tragedy to feel lost. Sometimes numbness is the deepest pain. Stay with me, because what's next might just stir something long asleep inside you. I thought God only gave purpose to the healed, to the strong, to the ones who didn't mess up their marriages. But then I found this verse, Romans 11:29. For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. Irrevocable. Not paused, not retracted, not conditionally delayed. Still there, still waiting, even in your rubble. One Saturday, no one called. No one needed me. The kids were with their mom. The house was clean. I sat on the couch and realized I have nothing to do, and no one to do it with. And right then, I heard it. Not a voice, not thunder, just this inner sentence. You were made for more than just waiting. That wrecked me, because deep down, I'd been waiting to feel worthy, to be invited, to start again. And God was saying, you don't have to wait to matter. Maybe there's a gift inside you that's gone quiet. The ability to comfort, the skill to build, the heart to listen. Maybe you've used it before for your family, your church, your friends. And when life fell apart, you assumed that part of you fell apart too. But God doesn't waste gifts. He doesn't bury what he plants. Here's how I started. I volunteered once a month, just to be around purpose again. I mentored a young guy who was also walking through divorce. I didn't fix him. I just showed up. I started writing again, just in a journal. No audience, just release. None of those made me whole overnight, but they opened a window. They let sunlight in, and slowly, purpose returned. Not flashy, but faithful. Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus, to do good works which God prepared in advance for us to do. Prepared in advance, which means your mistakes didn't cancel your assignment. They might have clarified it. Say it with me, I am still called. There is purpose after the pain. God still wants to use me. Again, God still wants to use me. You are still seen, still significant, still carrying something the world needs. In part 12, we'll go deeper into one of the most liberating truths. What if God not only sees you, but delights in you, even now, even here? Because being useful is one thing, being delighted in is everything. Come gently. This is where your soul remembers how to smile again. Doi jai la part dwa shobiftis. Van jan dao mod buok chuyen. Tu ko ik sang juok yeo tuong. Tu juok dung sang juok delight in boy chua. Valan nai fan mo jiao jiao juok. Vichuan chin theo hook tres punch. Ma ban yeo gog yup kyu chan man. Gai tu pant gyai jiao. Part 12, 15. He feels like a failure, but God still sees him. Hook 3 sponge, Chuan Jiao Vow, silent pain. You've spent years trying to be useful again, but deep down, you still wonder if anyone actually delights in you. Not for what you do, but who you are. Sacred question. What if God doesn't just tolerate you, but actually enjoys you? Soft memory. Remember when someone once looked at you like you were the only person in the room? It's been a long time, hasn't it? Punch phrase. You weren't made to be functional. You were made to be fully seen and deeply loved. When usefulness isn't enough. After the divorce, I got busy. I fixed the house, picked up extra hours, helped at church again, and slowly people stopped asking, "Are you okay?" Because I looked okay, but I wasn't. Because deep down, I didn't just want to be helpful. I wanted to be held, and I didn't know how to ask for that anymore. Retention moment, naming the ache. Maybe no one ever told you this, but men don't just burn out from overwork. They break from never feeling chosen. If you felt that, even silently stay. There's something here for you. Real moment, the casual smile. One Sunday, I brought coffee to a small group. She smiled and said, "You're so thoughtful." I smiled back, but inside I thought, if I wasn't thoughtful, would anyone still care that I'm here? That question haunted me, because I realized I was trading kindness for connection, usefulness for belonging. Scripture, the God who takes pleasure. Zephaniah 3:17. The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. Delight, rejoice, sing over you. That's not tolerance, that's affection. And it undid me, because I realized God wasn't waiting for me to impress him again. He was already near, already smiling. Maybe you've become the strong one, the helpful one, the wise one. But somewhere inside, you still ache to be wanted, not just needed. You want someone who doesn't just thank you, but chooses you, delights in you, stays for you. You're not selfish for wanting that. You're human, and God doesn't shame you for it. He built you that way for joy, not just function. Here's what changed things. I stopped serving during worship and just sat in the back with hands open. No task, no roles, just being. I wrote down this prayer. God, if you really enjoy me, let me feel it. I imagined his face, not disappointed, not busy, but actually glad I exist. It felt foreign at first, but slowly, it felt safe. Luke 15:20. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The father didn't wait for perfection. He ran. He delighted. He celebrated. And he still does. For you, say it with me. I am not just useful, I am loved. God doesn't just allow me. He delights in me. I don't have to earn affection. Again, I don't have to earn affection. You are still seen, still smiled at by heaven, still worth delight, not for what you do, but for who you are. In part 13, we'll sit with the part of you that still feels unhealed. What if the place you hide most is the place where God wants to pour the most grace? Because healing doesn't always come where you expect. Sometimes it starts in the shadow. Stay close. This next whisper may finally touch the place you thought was too far gone. You've built walls so well even you can't see where they begin or end. But behind those walls, a part of you still feels too broken to be found. What if God isn't deterred by your walls, but drawn to the place that's most hidden? That place in your chest when no one's around, where shame quietly nests. That's exactly where grace begins, in your hidden room. You carry pain no one knows, because you never let anyone in. Maybe it looks like a tear you swallow before anyone sees. A regret that hums beneath your smile. A voice in your head whispering that you'll never be enough. It's like a locked room inside you, and you've lost the key. If your hidden room still feels too full to share, stay, because this is the whisper meant only for that part of you. He didn't put you together and then say, now hide those pieces. Psalm 139. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You perceive my thoughts. You discern my going out and my lying down. You're familiar with all my ways. The God who painted galaxies knows your hidden room. He chose to remember your secret name. He sees your locked up heartbreak. Maybe the world only sees a man who shows up. Maybe they don't know you're still carrying that moment, that word, that regret, that wound. But God does, and He's already stepped inside. He doesn't need a grand invitation. A few nights ago, I took a sheet of paper, wrote that voice that still haunts. I'm too broken, folded it, and burned it. I didn't do it for anyone else. I did it to say I'm done carrying this alone. Maybe you can whisper it too, just in the dark. I release this. I don't carry this by myself anymore. Hosea 6:1. Come, let us return to the Lord. Let us press on to acknowledge the Lord, not us presenting a perfect face, but returning carrying broken pieces that He never asked us to hide. Say it slowly, I am broken, and I don't have to pretend. God still pursues me even in my cracks. I'm not too far gone. Again, I'm not too far gone. You are still seen, still pursued in your secret spaces. Still enough exactly as you are, right where you're at. In part 14, we'll begin to piece together that brokenness. How do shattered parts become a living mosaic, not just for yourself, but for others? Because sometimes your scars are part of someone else's healing. Stay hopeful, because what comes next may finally show you the purpose of your hidden pain. That ache you've carried alone has put you in the quietest places nobody else dares enter. What if that very place, the one you've hidden, is where others need light the most? The moment you realized your wound wasn't meant to be buried. It was meant to shine a path for someone hurting too. Your scars don't disqualify you. They qualify you to lead someone else through the dark. I thought my pain would always isolate me, but it surprised me one night when I spoke to a friend, another father who lost everything. I shared the cereal aisle moment, the prayerless nights, the shame I couldn't shake. He listened. Then he said, "That's exactly why I needed to hear it." Hearing it wasn't about me anymore. It was about him. And in that moment, my brokenness became a bridge. If your wound already feels like too much, stay. Because giving your story may be the first step toward healing someone else and yourself. He called it 2 a.m. Devastated. I lost my kid. He sobbed, voice cracking, and I remembered my own nights, the loneliness, the fear, the ache. I didn't fix him. I just said I've been there. You don't have to walk alone. We prayed, we talked. Not long, not perfect, just enough. 2 Corinthians 1:4. Who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. That one verse changed everything. My comfort wasn't for me alone. It was the armor and lamp for someone else's midnight. Maybe you think your pain is private. Maybe you believe no one else would benefit from your story. What if that pain, the one you wish you never had, is exactly where grace wants to walk someone else? Your survival isn't just for you. It's the first light that enters another's darkness. Here's what I did. I listened to that late night call. Even when I was exhausted, I shared my part, the shame, the fear, the hope. Honestly, not to impress, but to connect. I prayed with him, without big words. Just, God meet us right here. That connection didn't solve everything, but it made the darkness smaller. Matthew 5:14. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Your presence, even wounded, can be a beacon. Your scars can shine. Say it. My story brings light. My scars qualify me to help. I am a bridge of grace. Again, I am a bridge of grace. You are still seen, still shining, not in spite of the scars, but through them. In part 15, we'll breathe together, gathering every promise, every scar, every whisper. We'll stand not just on our own feet, but on the foundation of every lesson learned, every tear dried, every wound transformed. It's time for the final whisper, homecoming. Come gently. This ending may feel like the beginning. You've walked through ache, through silence, through guilt. And now, maybe you're afraid to ask, what's left of me now? But what if the real you, the one God always saw, is still waiting right beneath the scar? The moment you first laughed again and realized healing had begun. Maybe you didn't lose yourself. Maybe you've just come home. It started with loss. It moved through silence. It pressed through doubt, shame, numbness, fatigue. But look at you now, still breathing, still standing, still soft enough to feel. That's not weakness, that's redemption in motion. You've been walking toward this, not a version of who you were, but a fuller version of who you're becoming. Home isn't always a house. Sometimes it's a voice inside that finally says, I don't have to fight myself anymore. It's the freedom to walk into a room and not shrink. It's waking up and not flinching from hope. And most of all, it's knowing that God never stopped walking with you, not for a moment. Isaiah 43:1-2. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. You pass through, not around, not over, through, and you're still His. If you're still listening, I need you to hear this. You're not the same man who started this 15-day journey. You're softer, stronger, more honest. You've let go of shame. You've faced your silence. You've remembered your voice. Welcome back. Before you go, if one part of this journey stayed with you a sentence, a scripture, a whisper, would you share it in the comments? There might be someone just one day behind you scrolling in the dark, hoping to find proof that healing is possible. Your words could be their first light. Let this space be sacred, a place where stories echo and scars shine. Say it with me, I am still seen. I am still loved. I am finally home. Again, I am finally home. You were never forgotten. You were never too far gone. You were simply on your way back to the you God never stopped loving. If this series found you in your night, know this. There's more healing ahead. More silence to be broken. More joy to be remembered. And if this brought you peace, wait until you hear what's in the next whisper.